When we think of ancient Rome, food rarely takes center stage, but it should, because Roman kitchens were remarkably sophisticated and far ahead of their time. They blended garlic into creamy cheese spreads. They simmered grape juice into thick, flavorful syrups. They layered eggs and herbs in dishes that resemble the earliest forms of lasagna. These meals weren't merely functional. They were thoughtful, layered, and full of flavor you wouldn't expect from 2,000 years ago. And yet, so much of it has vanished, forgotten by history, and skipped by modern menus. Today, we're looking at 15 Roman foods that didn't just feed an empire, they defined it. Dishes made with care, ritual, and taste buds far bolder than ours. Some were sacred, and some pretty strange, but all of them were worth remembering.
Hit the like button, subscribe, and let's begin with one of the most mysterious ingredients of the ancient world.
First, silphium. Silphium was more than just a plant, it was a culinary legend. Grown only in a narrow strip of what's now Libya, this golden-stalked herb had a pungent, slightly sweet, garlicky fennel flavor that Romans couldn't get enough of. They used it in everything: sauces, meats, pickled vegetables, even aphrodisiacs. It was so valuable that it appeared on Roman coins. Julius Caesar reportedly stored over 1,500 pounds of it in the state treasury. Its fate, however, remains a mystery. No confirmed specimens survive. Ancient sources tell us the final known stalk was ceremonially presented to Emperor Nero, who promptly consumed it. Botanists still debate what silphium actually was. Some believe it was a variety of wild fennel. Others argue it was a now-extinct plant related to Asafoetida. But no one has managed to resurrect it. Its extinction was not accidental. The Romans harvested it with such intensity that by the 1st century AD, it had vanished. So the next time you reach for truffle oil or artisanal salt, remember, ancient Rome once prized a flavor so revered, it was quite literally consumed into extinction. But that's just the beginning. Next up, the Roman godfather of pesto. Second, Maridum. Long before P-alien cuisine, Roman farmers were crafting a bold, aromatic spread known as maridum. This early ancestor of pesto was made by crushing garlic, sheep's cheese, herbs, salt, and olive oil into a thick paste using a stone mortar. Maridum was intense, garlicky, salty, and highly flavorful. A poem attributed to Virgil even describes it as part of a peasant's morning meal, eaten with bread. Far from a simple condiment, it was regarded as functional nourishment, rich in protein, antimicrobial thanks to the garlic, and perfect for laborers, soldiers, or anyone needing sustenance and warmth. Unlike modern dips, maridum was freshly prepared each time, using whatever herbs were on hand: parsley, rue, coriander. Today's pesto is refined, clean, smooth. But maridum, that's rustic and authentically Roman. If you think that was bold, the next ingredient may surprise you: a fermented sauce that once dominated Roman cuisine. Garum. No flavor was more central to Roman cooking than garum, a fermented fish sauce that was used in almost everything. While the idea may sound unappealing today, garum was the cornerstone of Roman flavor. It was made by layering small fish, such as anchovies, with salt and allowing them to ferment in the sun. The resulting liquid, once strained, became an umami-rich seasoning comparable to modern soy sauce or Worcestershire. Garum wasn't just an occasional condiment. It was blended into wine, honey, vinegar, and even water. There were luxury varieties for the elite and more modest versions for soldiers and laborers. Coastal towns along the Mediterranean specialized in its production, exporting it throughout the empire in ceramic amphorae. Although its origins might sound off-putting, recreations by chefs and historians have revealed a complex, savory flavor, far more nuanced than expected. Its reputation may have faltered over time, but to Roman palates, it was indispensable. To Roman palates, it was essential, like broth to ramen or anchovies to Caesar salad. Quartum libum. Before dessert became a course to impress guests, Roman sweets were often sacred offerings. One of the most beloved was libum, a simple cake made from cheese, flour, and egg, then drizzled with honey. It wasn't a cheesecake in the modern sense. Libum was dense, often baked on bay leaves to infuse it with a light herbal aroma. Its texture sat somewhere between a biscuit and a muffin, but the flavor, mild cheese softened by warm honey, offered true comfort. Originally, libum was placed on household altars as an offering to the lares, the protective spirits of the home. But over time, like many ritual foods, it moved from the altar to the table. Cato the Elder, known for preserving traditional Roman customs, included the recipe in his agricultural writings. Thanks to him, it remains one of the oldest documented desserts in the Western world. Just look at this. A libum fresh from a clay oven, fragrant with bay leaf and soaked in wild honey. It was simple, yes, but deeply satisfying. And speaking of sweetness, the Romans didn't stop at cake. They even sweetened their wines and stews, using a syrup with a darker and more dangerous history. De frutum. Long before refined sugar, the Romans had de frutum, thick, syrupy reduction made by boiling grape juice until it concentrated into something resembling molasses. This versatile sweetener was used to glaze meats, flavor desserts, preserve fruits, and enhance sauces. It brought richness, acidity, and a touch of sweetness, similar to a modern balsamic reduction, but often thicker and stickier. Some Roman producers made de frutum in lead cookware. The lead reacted with the acids in the grapes to form lead acetate, an artificial sweetener. Effective, but highly toxic. Historians continue to debate whether such widespread use of lead contributed to the decline of Rome's elite class. That said, the underlying concept of de frutum remains clever, a sustainable, natural sweetener made from seasonal surplus. And when prepared with safe materials, it's still used in Italian cooking today, under names like sappa or mostocado. Modern cookware makes it perfectly safe to revive, just perhaps without the lead. Now that we've tasted Rome's take on syrup, let's return to its foundation, a humble grain dish that fed both soldier and citizen. Sixth pulse. At the heart of Roman cuisine was pulse, a thick porridge made from emmer wheat, barley, or spelt. It was the daily sustenance of soldiers, farmers, and workers alike. The preparation was straightforward. Boil the grain with water or milk until it thickens, then enrich it with whatever was available: cheese, lentils, herbs, honey, even garum. Its strength lay in its adaptability. Pulse could be made savory or sweet, humble or elevated. It wasn't luxurious, but it was dependable, providing calories, protein, and fiber. Roman legions carried sacks of grain and cooked pulse over campfires, often stirring in vegetables, scraps of meat, or a splash of vinegar. Even the upper classes occasionally enjoyed it, sometimes ironically, garnished with luxury items like truffles or quail eggs. Today, we praise grain bowls and risottos as contemporary health food, but the Romans were doing it millennia ago, nourishing and endlessly flexible. And when they needed something to wash it down, they didn't reach for wine or water alone. They had something sharper, yet surprisingly restorative. Seventh, oxymel. To quench thirst and boost vitality, Romans turned to oxymel, a tangy medicinal drink made from vinegar, honey, water, and aromatic herbs. At first glance, the idea of vinegar as refreshment may seem counterintuitive, but the acidity helped cut through heat and fatigue, while the honey balanced the sharpness. Herbs such as mint, thyme, or fennel added both flavor and therapeutic value. Roman physicians recommended oxymel for a variety of ailments: sore throats, indigestion, fevers. In the Mediterranean heat, it was both hydration and medicine in a single flask. Laborers drank it in the fields, soldiers carried it on campaign. Even scholars like Pliny the Elder recorded its uses. Today, oxymel has returned in the form of shrubs and switchels, vinegar-based wellness drinks now found in health stores and cafes. Yet the Romans had perfected the formula centuries before modern wellness trends rediscovered it. Now that you're refreshed, let's move to something warm, savory, and layered: a dish that might be the Roman prototype of lasagna. Culmus patina. Long before Italians perfected the art of lasagna, the Romans were baking a layered dish of their own called patina. But unlike modern lasagna, there were no noodles. A patina referred to any dish baked in a flat, shallow pan, often combining vegetables, meats, legumes, or eggs, layered and bound with cheese or a light custard. Some versions were savory, others sweet. A favorite included leeks, eggs, and pepper, baked until just set. Dozens of patina recipes survive in Apicius, the famed Roman cookbook. Some were elaborate, featuring oysters, fish, and aromatic spices, while others relied on lentils and herbs for simpler fare. What makes patina remarkable is its flexibility. There was no fixed formula or one correct version. One could use squash and ricotta or chickpeas with rosemary. The method was always the same: bake until fragrant and golden. Today, casseroles and gratins carry the spirit of patina, but the Roman version offered a freedom and creativity that still feels modern. After such a rich and bubbling dish, dessert was never far behind. The Romans, as always, had something indulgent in mind: sweet and utterly satisfying. Diveti globi. Imagine the scent of hot cheese dough frying in oil and the sound of warm honey drizzling over golden crisp spheres. That's globi, Rome's answer to the donut. Made by mixing soft cheese with flour or semolina, these small balls were fried and then soaked in honey. Sometimes they were finished with poppy seeds or a dusting of pepper for added complexity. They were reserved for celebrations, festivals, weddings, and feasts dedicated to the gods. Apicius includes them under his section on luxury foods, and it's easy to see why. Crunchy outside, soft inside, intensely sweet, they were unforgettable. If ricotta fritters and churros shared an ancient origin, it might well be globi, and yet somehow, this delightful dessert faded into obscurity. We revived cupcakes and invented cronuts. Globi deserves its own revival, one tied to ancient tradition and timeless pleasure. But Roman sweetness wasn't limited to dessert. Sometimes it elevated their wine into rich, complex sauces. Gisciunta carinum. Wine in ancient Rome was more than a beverage. It was a key ingredient in cooking. When they wanted to amplify its flavor, they made carinum, a reduction created by boiling wine down by about 1/3. This thickened wine became a versatile cooking base. It was used to glaze meats, sweeten sauces, and deepen stews. Think of it as a Roman version of demi-glace, rich in acidity and sweetness. Carinum wasn't reserved for special occasions. It was a practical, everyday technique. Sometimes it was blended with defrutum or herbs to create complex reductions. Unlike the cooking wine of today, often used to mask flavor, carinum was the flavor. And because it stored well, it became a staple even on long campaigns. Soldiers may have marched on grain, but they dined on carinum-glazed goat. And just as some dishes honored everyday life, others marked major moments, like this next cake, baked in bay leaves and steeped in symbolism. Elevte mustaceum. Before towering cakes and fondant roses, Romans had mustaceum, an aromatic spiced wedding cake baked on bay leaves. It was simple in ingredients: grape must, flour, soft cheese, and herbs. But its symbolism ran deeper. The bay leaves released a subtle woodsy fragrance as the cake baked, infusing the loaf with a distinct ceremonial aroma. Soft, chewy, gently spiced, mustaceum was served at weddings, and guests often took slices home as symbols of fertility and good fortune. It wasn't a showpiece, it was a ritual, and every bite carried that legacy. Today, we settle for cupcakes and sparklers, but maybe weddings need less frosting and more flavor. Mustaceum deserves a comeback, if only for a cake that actually means something. Dvanaxta lucanica. Rome basically invented the sausage empire, and it all started with lucanica, a spicy, fatty, intensely seasoned sausage originally from the region of Lucania. Roman soldiers discovered it during military campaigns and brought it home to the capital, spreading the preparation method as part of Rome's culinary expansion. Made with minced meat, pepper, coriander, salt, and sometimes wine or pine nuts. Lucanica was stuffed into casings, then smoked or dried for preservation. It was ideal for travel, portable protein that kept well and packed flavor. Legionaries carried it across Europe and North Africa, spreading not only the recipe, but the Roman palate itself. Modern sausages in Spain, Portugal, and Eastern Europe still carry traces of Lucanica in name and form. So why did it fade? Possibly because industrial food production favored milder, sweeter flavors. But bringing Lucanica back would mean reintroducing deep spice, rich fat, and a taste of Roman resilience. Now, turning back towards sweetness, this next Roman staple was their syrup of choice, and it deserves a place in today's kitchens. On üçüncü sapa. You've heard of maple syrup, but have you heard of sapa? This glossy, dark grape syrup was ancient Rome's all-purpose sweetener, made by slowly boiling down grape must until it thickened into a rich, molasses-like reduction. Sapa was incredibly versatile. Romans used it in cakes, stews, breads, and even wine. It added sweetness, body, and subtle fruity complexity, all without processed sugar. Unlike defrutum, which was reduced by about half, sapa was boiled longer, resulting in a thicker, more luxurious syrup. Some recipes even called for added spices, transforming it into a glaze or sauce base. Sapa was also a brilliant example of zero-waste cuisine. Grapes that didn't make it into wine were turned into syrup instead, an efficient, sustainable practice. Similar reductions like mostocado still exist in Italian cooking today, but they remain niche. Meanwhile, modern cuisine continues to rely on corn syrup and refined sugar. It may be time to give this ancient sweetener a second life. Next, we look at how Romans approached tea, not with leaves and bags, but with grains and herbs, on dördüncü tisana. Long before herbal teas lined grocery store shelves, Romans brewed tisana, a nourishing infusion made from grains, herbs, legumes, or fruit peels. Tisana was not a delicate beverage, but rather a medicinal infusion, earthy, warm, and designed for comfort and recovery. A typical version might include barley steeped with mint or chickpeas simmered with bay leaf. Physicians recommended tisana for digestion, fever, fatigue, even emotional distress. Soldiers drank it in camps. The ill were prescribed it at home. It was restorative, both physically and emotionally, but tisana was also communal. Prepared slowly, sipped slowly, and often shared between family members or neighbors, it became a quiet ritual in an otherwise chaotic empire. Today, wellness brands promote detox teas and herbal tonics, but the concept is not new. The Romans understood long ago that warmth, nourishment, and simplicity could heal. And speaking of bold choice, the next Roman delicacy might just be the most controversial of all, Decimtasis gliers. Yes, it's true. Romans ate dormice, small rodents stuffed with minced meat, pine nuts, pepper, and honey, roasted until golden, and served at elite banquets. But not the scrappy street kind. These were pampered rodents, fattened on walnuts and acorns, raised in terracotta jars called gleraria until they were plump and ready to be stuffed. Then, roasted to a golden crisp and served as a display of excess at elite Roman banquets. They were especially popular during festivals like Saturnalia, where elite households showcased their power through opulent feasts. Even Apicius included dormouse recipes in his famous cookbook. Today, the idea of serving dormice is unthinkable. Our relationship with animals has shifted, and for good reason. But in Rome, culinary limits were few. If it was flavorful and impressive, it was on the table. So no, we're not saying you should serve stuffed rodents at your next dinner party. But should we remember that the Romans ate boldly, creatively, and without apology? Absolutely. The Romans left behind more than ruins and legends. They left behind flavors, intricate and occasionally strange. Their food told stories. It nourished their citizens, treated the sick, honored the gods, and brought joy to ordinary moments. And perhaps, it's time we rediscovered some of it. Many of these dishes have been lost to time, displaced by industrial food systems, shifting tastes, and centuries of change. But their recipes remain. Their purpose remains. And they still speak to something deeply human. our desire not just to eat, but to taste something meaningful. So if one dish could return to modern tables, which would you choose? Let us know in the comments. And if you're hungry for more culinary history of the Romans, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.